we're asking you to assist us again this year in making these basketball tournaments a youth-first environment, really through two simple steps, right? One is handing out and having a pregame meeting. That's super important. And during that meeting, handing one of these reminder cards to each coach before the start of the game. The cards will be available at the score table. And then at the completion of each game, really recording a yes or no vote on the team, both teams on the score sheet. Did the players, coaches, parents, fans in the stands, did they meet those 3 points of emphasis that are on the card? Remember it's about the kids, keep your competitive energies in check, and always respect officials and opponents. And, through that process, we're trying to keep the focus on the kids, the development of the kids, and the reason we play the games, right? So Tony, maybe talk a little bit about your thoughts on the pregame meeting and how that youth first environment reminder impacts the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. It just sets the tone for the game. In each game, our officials are instructed to have that pregame meeting. Just an introduction is all it is, really. Opens up that line of communication because a lot of times that is our job really as an official to be really good communicators. And if we give that luxury to the coaches to know who we are and that it's okay to ask questions, but it's not okay to yell out onto the floor and just do things that are inappropriate as youth first. That's our objective, right? So
Right.
again, super simple stuff. Could be as easy as, hey, I'm Tony, this is Mark, we're going to be your officials for today. If you have any questions throughout the game, please ask. We'll give you an answer, but we're going to get back to work. And right there, they're going to go, yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Thank you for, just introducing yourselves. And we want to make sure that happens at the 2 minute mark of warm ups. I get it. Officials' lives are busy in between games. We want to quick grab a bite, maybe get a drink, have to use the restroom, whatever it is. But make sure that you leave yourself some time to have that 2 minute mark to do that pregame. Again, that just sets the tone, and hopefully the coaches can, feed off of our energy when we're bringing that good energy to the game. That bleeds into the coaches and also into the players and hopefully into the fans just as well, because there's always issues, but if you're taking care of business and taking care of the house, we can get through those obstacles and make it a good experience for the student athlete, because that's what it's about. It's about our athletes participating and
Yeah,
you
and
know
and I many times talk about, nobody is perfect, right? I mean, many of the officials have played or even coached the game, and they get into officiating kind of as a way to give back to the game and just stay around it. And that said, there's no perfect players, no perfect coaches, no perfect parents, and no perfect officials. So I think, yeah, things are going to happen that you don't maybe agree with or you saw it differently, but it's how you handle those things that really teaches the lessons to the kids. So, I know you officiate at a really high level, several different sports. So, what's your advice to officials when, they have calls that maybe get questioned?
again, we're just like it's just communicating with the coach, and not every kid makes every shot, right? And not every official is going to get every call correct. It's how we just communicate with that coach. Coach says, I see it different, and then at that point you can just say, hey, at the bare minimum you can say, well, we have to agree to disagree, but I have to get back to work because I can't be consumed by this one particular call out of the 200-300 in a game that we have. So how we manage those situations, and again, giving that grace to the coach to be able to, that they can ask that question, right? And that I can give them an answer. Will they agree with you all the time? Probably not. But do we as officials agree with some of the stuff that coaches try to implement in their teams? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
again, if once they shoot 1,000% on the day, then I'm going to be perfect. Until then, I'll never be perfect. But we're living at a high standard, so if we're 95 to 98% correct, that's a good place to live, right? It's not perfection, but that's where excellence lives. It's right up there to the top. So I mean, and we have to remember that a lot of our officials working youth basketball are developing just like the players. We're not going to put somebody into a game that they shouldn't be on, that they can't handle. because they're not ready for that level game. And that's why we have third through eighth grade. So our newer officials are going to be on the lower level games, and they're learning how to communicate and how to talk and all those other things. And then, they're going to get, we'll push them up into the higher levels when they feel they're ready. And,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, and I, we talk a lot about youth sports done right, that idea, and I think one of the things we talked about too is how to coaches become partners with the officials in the process, because in my perspective on it is coaches and officials are there for the same reason, the same purpose, which is to provide the kids an opportunity to have a great sports experience, right? So, but you have different roles in that. So, you know, I look at it a lot from a coaching perspective. You have much more experience from an official's perspective. How can officials partner, I think, a little bit with the coach to accomplish that, help them to understand that perspective that they're there for the same purpose, but just have to play a different role.
each game's going to be a little different. So if it's you and I work in their first game, and then we have two new officials, right? If they're going to move to a new
Hmm.
court, those two officials may call the game just a freckle different, right? I mean, and that's where coaches need to make the adjustments to what we're calling in that game, right? So the last game, them two officials, they had all the travels, right? They were like travel, right? They got all those correct. The next one, then maybe they're letting a couple go because it was incidental contact and that's what caused the travel or whatever it is, right? I mean, that's where coaches and officials really work together. And when the players see that, then they know that we're going to be okay for today's game. And hopefully that also goes into the stands where the parents are seeing that, wow, these two, Mark and Tony, had a pregame. They don't know our names, right? We're not yelling, hey, this is Mark, this is Tony. But they're seeing that the officials and the coaches are talking before the game. And then when there is a banger, right, a close call one way or the other, right, and now we're communicating again. They're like, hey, as long as they're talking, right, when one diminishes the other's importance within that game, that's when things start, getting a little snarly, and it's let's just be really good communicators and let's really work together again to, give the student athlete the best experience we can give.
I
And,
think, from a coaching
again,
perspective, I've always, their job is to teach the game and, encourage the kid, the players to work together. That's part of the team thing, right? Trying to achieve a common goal and learn how to be a good teammate, all those things. And it's not if a call isn't going to go your way, it's when, right? I mean, everybody's got a different perspective, and you see it from a different side. And I think, again, how you respond to that, especially as a coach, is going to teach the players, the lesson. How do you learn from what just happened, but then how do you have a short memory? How do you move on, right? Stay in the game, move on, get better, try to, respond to adversity that way is the lesson that you're teaching. And I think that does resonate. It goes not just with the players, but it certainly affects the fans and the parents in the stands. So, yeah, what other advice? Do you have any other advice for coaches coming into in tournament weekends? Just from your perspective.
yeah, just again, you're working as a coach, and truly myself as a coach, I was one of my players to be calm. So when there is that adverse situation, they can work through it, right? Their mind is
Right.
set,
Yeah.
they're level set. It should be the same with the officials, right? I'm not going to try to work an official, scream at an official, and especially our younger, inexperienced officials, they're going to get a little flustered. So now the game is going to get it might get right. I'm not going to say it's guaranteed that it's going to get sloppy or out of control, but
Yeah.
if you're putting that official where they're feeling like, well, this person's just attacking me nonstop, now I'm thinking about that and not truly thinking about officiating. So
Right. Right.
my best advice for coaches is just to, hey, work with that official, ask questions so you know what they're thinking for that game, right? Again, you and I may be thinking something different, and then they go to game two, and those same calls that we were making or not making are different in the other game. Now they got to ask, hey, what'd you see on that play, right? Well, they were set, but then when they came through, that person stuck an elbow out, so that's a foul, right? And sometimes with two officials, there's 10 people moving around, we may miss one of those, right? And that's why they added a third for, high school and up, right? I mean, there's 3 officials for a reason to pick up those cutters going through the middle where we don't get all those catches. Hey, just work with those 2 officials on that particular game really well. Ask the probing questions without yelling, because then that keeps your players and it keeps the officials all engaged in that game with a good mindset. Right?